Where is this? All right, we're good.
Okay, cool. We'll get rolling.
Cool.
If anyone else joins in, they can hop in as they come.
Okay, I'm gonna get recording 1 second.
I believe we are.
Oh, we already are. Good to
Mhm.
go. Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you guys for hopping on with us. We are going to run through the perfect listing presentation. So everything Nick does and has done and found to work for winning listing presentations. And then we will be hearing also from Anna Jaworski from Brick Financial. She's going to talk to us a little bit about what is a bridge loan and how to use that to your advantage when you have someone who wants to sell and buy at the same time. And then we'll do a little Q&A at the end. So Nick is going to get us rolling here with the listing presentation.
Yep, I'll get it going. All right, everybody, here we are. I'm gonna move us so we can get into the slideshow. Okay, thank you all for being here. Like Alexa said, grateful to be able to teach you all today. I love listings. I feel good about the way I present listings and my whole process there. So I'm kind of excited to teach you about that. Let's click through. Okay, so step one, the most important thing here is prep work, all right? So I know this is the perfect listing presentation, but I feel like I'd be remiss, like I'd be skipping major parts of this and not setting you up for success if I didn't tell you how I plan for all listings, all right? So when I have a listing prospect, somebody who comes in and they're interested in selling their home with me, the first thing I do is I schedule a phone call with them. If they've called me, then I get them on the phone. Of course, I get phone number, email, address, all of the basic details. And then I schedule my listing appointment right away. All right. So I'm trying to book an in-person appointment at their home. If they're asking me like, hey, what do you think my house is worth ballpark? Then I'd let them know, hey, look, I need to see your home in person so that I can see the finishes before I could ever give you even a ballpark estimate of your home's worth. So that's how I always get those appointments set. I'm pretty successful in getting them set right on the first phone call. Once I hang up with them the first time, then I go back to my desk. Listings are my highest priority thing. So, as long as there's no like fires happening on any other transactions, I'll go right to my desk and get to work on listings, right? Because I believe it's incredibly important, just like speed to lead is important in the first phone call or the first response. I think it's really important, especially if you think you may be in a competitive scenario, to get your information out to the prospective seller as quickly as possible so that you can basically I'm always trying to set the bar very high, very rapidly, so that anybody else who I'm competing against kind of just doesn't look very good, right? So I'll go right to my desk. The first thing, which I think all of you should do, this is wildly important, is you need to confirm the data that you have on this house. All right. So the biggest thing that I'm looking for is square footage. Okay. So there's tons of discrepancies very regularly in square footage on homes. A lot of times sellers have no idea, but this is incredibly important because I'm almost always using price per square foot as a strong indicator or reference point when I'm building out a price point for a listing. Okay. So I will go into the MLS, right? I would pull up the original listing. So let's do this one that I have coming soon right now. I would pull up the old listing. I'd print to PDF this and I save it in a Google Drive folder titled 3411 Sutton. Okay, so this is the first piece of information I collect. I save it because I'm going to need to look at it a gazillion times. But I don't know if this is all right, right? Even if they put that like they got this information from prior listing, I'd still like to double check myself. So then I'll go to BS&A, all right? All of you should bookmark this, catalog this, lock this website in your brain. All you need to do is look up the city name, right? Like I live in Norfolk Township BSA, and it will take you to this website where you can go and you can look at their stuff directly from the city. Occasionally, their record will be behind a paywall, but I am more than willing to pay $3 all day long to get access to their records. I was going to type in my own, but this is going to be on YouTube, so I won't put my address on YouTube. Anyways, guess you can do this later with your own home. And when you get to the record, it'll show you the city's record of square footage. It will actually show you any past due taxes, utilities, any issues with like violations in terms of like code and stuff like that. So please use BSNA. I'll tell you a really important example here, why I think this is incredibly important. First of all, you're going to be basing your price off square footage, so it should be right. But second thing is, like, I just walked into a listing appointment over the weekend with one of my neighbors, got that listing. We both purchased from Pulte originally. And Pulte had their house listed, I don't remember the exact figures, but approximately 2,650 square feet. I went on the Northfield Township's BSNA website, pulled it, and their house is actually like 2,798 square feet based on the plans that were submitted to the city and approved. And so I found them 150 square feet, and I can list it that way. And the average price per square foot in my subdivision is $234. So you can do the math, whatever that is, 150 times 234. So I walked into their listing appointment. I was like, hey, look, I think I found you this much money, you know? So just make sure your facts are correct. I'll also tell you in my CMA email, which I sent out beforehand, I do tell them what square footage I have their house at, because early on in my career, I always send out a CMA email, which I'm going to detail with you here today. But, you know, I was competing for a listing in Ferndale. I went off public record. The people never responded to me and told me the square footage. It was kind of like a medical emergency scenario. And they did respond to another agent who got the updated square footage, and I actually lost that listing because they had done an addition, which was like an extra 200 square feet. So I was way off on price, and I didn't know, and I lost that listing. So anyways, that's why I harp on this big time. So I get my data confirmed. All right. Then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the MLS and I'm going to pull comps. This is not a presentation on how to pull comps, although I think it's wildly important. So we're going to go through it for a minute or two. When you're pulling comps, you should be looking in, obviously, same city, same school district. I like to be within a square mile, right? Obviously, I know, like when you get Howell or further north or west or anywhere that gets a little more spread out, you might have to spread that out. But where I live in Northville and where I work regularly, we can do within a mile. If I can tighten it up even better and just do that neighborhood, I would prefer to do that. Same architectural style. So I'm comparing colonials to colonials, ranch versus ranch, and then trying to get close on square footage. So it depends how big the house is. A smaller home, like under 2,000 square feet, 1,500 square feet, I'm looking 250 square feet above and below. For stuff like 2,750, 3,000 square feet and above, then I'll kind of range it out to like 500 square feet above and below. Really what I'm trying to do is get as close as possible. All right, so I'm pulling really good comps, and then I prepare a CMA report. Now I use Cloud CMA, which is offered through our MLS. Let me see if I can get one to you here. Let me pull up an example for those of you who don't do this. Cloud CMA is wildly slow lately, but I'll pull comps through the MLS, and then I'll click through to add all of them. And then I click and add them to a Cloud CMA report. That Cloud CMA report is going to create like a live link for me here. Let's see, I should have had these ones prepped in advance because this website takes so long. Come on, buddy. Anyways, I get the CMA report, all right, and I put that thing together. An important note for you here about comps. I am traditionally looking to have like 2 to 4 comps, really good ones. 3 is like my magic number. That's the ideal scenario. I think appraisers very regularly are referencing 3 other comps, and that's what I think they like to see. So what I would not encourage you to do is I would not personally really be a big fan of including like 5 or 10. If you're in like the double digits of comps, then you have a problem. It's going to be confusing, misleading to your potential sellers. And I think you don't have enough information yet, personally, very likely. So I'm really trying to get just down to like my top 3 as best I can in that CMA report. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on public record. Okay. I'm going to go to Remine. I will type in whatever the address is of this house that I'm looking at, and it will show me that person's equity, that person's available equity. All right. Oh, it's already listed, so it might not work. Okay, so you can just do like Control F on your computer, and you'll be able to see their current loan balance, 360K, whatever it is for that property. I'm going to take that figure and I'm going to go to a net seller proceeds calculator. All right. So First Centennial Title is my title company. I love them. They're awesome. They're my title partner, and they do all the title work for my business and all my personal purchases as well. But I really like Liberty Title's net seller calculator. It's very simple. It's super easy to use. It's very fast. So in this example, the house, I'm just using the house that I just brought to market yesterday. 650 is the list price. I know that they're on city sewer, city water. So, or if they were in this example, then I'd have a $300 water escrow. Ballpark, most purchase agreements pull for that or request that. And then my compliance fee is $595. So I include that in there. I generate the PDF and it creates an excellent net seller proceeds sheet. All right. So lots of pre-work on my behalf, right? I think I do probably a lot more pre-work than most, maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at other people's processes. But what I'm going to do is I take all of this information and I put it into a CMA email. If you give me 1 second here, I'm going to stop the share for just a second while I see if I can pull up one of my CMA emails that I've sent to a client recently, so you can get an idea of what I do. I've taught this many times in my Agent Accelerator course, my whole process. And I have had countless people think that I'm totally nuts for sending all this information before I get the listing, which I completely understand. But I find that just sending this email alone usually wins me the listing before I ever even show up at the house. So I'm going to share my screen again here. You should make your own format of this. Maybe I'll make it so mine is saleable. I can create that through a link. If anybody's interested in just purchasing my template, then we can put that together for you. But I create a really nice email. Hey, thank you so much in advance. Whenever I pitch a listing, these are the most important things I tell people. Sales price, I'm including my CMA. What you can see that I include the square footage I have on record. I tell them how I pulled these comps. I'm telling them that appraisers are only going to go off sold homes. I give them a sales price of any comps, average price per square foot. If there's more than one included, then I would say the sales price, the average sales price was $575 with a range from $550 to $600. If there were multiples, again, same here. Average price per square foot is $173 with a range from $163 to $183. Next thing I'm going to talk about in this email is timeline, costs associated with me, what I bring to the table, net seller sheet, and then a conclusion. All right. I believe these are really important. Okay. I think, let me get that back into the slideshow. And so I can see all of your faces here. But I think that email alone has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars. I usually walk into a listing and every question any person could possibly have is usually already answered in that email. And I've established myself as an expert who is treating this like a business, who has a legitimate process. I can't tell you how many times I walk in the house and they're like, man, I've never seen an email like this before. We're pretty much good, let's sign docs or whatever. So that does actually happen a lot. I think you should build out your own email just like that. So that's prep work. It's wildly important. The next thing I really want to talk to you about is expecting to win the listing. So this is a little bit of a note about, let's see, the next one's going to be a note about mindset and stuff. This is really expecting to win the listing in the way of documents. Okay. Another thing I see or hear about very frequently with agents and brokers when they show up to listing appointment is they haven't really prepared or expected to win. And so they don't walk in prepared, which I find very interesting. So before I ever had any listing appointment, I'm expecting to win. I have that in my mind, right? I deserve to do this. I'm capable, competent, and confident in my ability to perform here. And so I pre-prepare all of my documents in Remine Docs. All right. If you use Remind, that's part of my MLS. I think everybody here is pretty dang local, pretty close. So you're likely all using Remind as well. But I have a package pre-set up, right? So I have all my listing documents in there and I pre-fill them. I didn't used to pre-fill them like, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And I always just felt like it was such a waste of time sitting next to the seller and them watching me fill this out when I could have just done it beforehand. So I pre-fill out as much information as possible. I would put in my projected list price in there as well. This is another thing I do very intentionally. I'm trying to frame our conversation and basically set it up to lead towards what I think the anticipated or suggested outcome should be. So if I think the house, it should be listed at 650, then I'm going to put 650 in there because it's already on the digital document and I would need to change that. Okay. So I'm kind of just making unspoken agreements with this person before I even see them in real life. So I prep all my documents digitally, and then I also bring a backup paper copy every single time. Okay. It kind of kills me because it's a little bit of a waste of paper. 90+% of the time I have no issues with the digital documents, but there have been many times, like more than two hands, where I get to the house and then there's some sort of issue with like my hotspot, or some sort of issue with Remind. I don't know if you use Remind regularly, it's not uncommon that there are issues. And so I always have a paper copy also pre-filled just in case, right? I don't want to burn time showing this person that I am ready to take on the job. Next thing, showing up to win. Okay, I think this is also incredibly important. I'm not telling you how to dress for a listing appointment. I'm just telling you that you should dress intentionally. All right. This is kind of like a hot topic, I feel like, for people. Again, not telling you what to wear. I'm just telling you to be intentional about the thing you wear. I think you'll be perceived however you show up. So you should be on time, slightly early. Listing appointments are not a thing where I show up 15 or 20 minutes early for sure, but I'm absolutely never late. I usually try and show up 5 minutes early. Okay. Listing appointments can be obviously stressful for newer agents or people who haven't taken a lot of listings. And if it's stressful for us, it's almost certainly stressful for a lot of sellers because this is not their job, right? They have offered an appointment to you so that you can earn their business because they're not an expert. So this will not be a normal thing that they're accustomed to most of the time, okay? So I don't want to get there way too early where they're not ready to roll. All right. So 5 minutes is my target time. I dress intentionally how I would like to be perceived. I am cool, calm, and collected. You do whatever you need to do, but you should be setting your state before you go into this house. Okay. So I would do my best. Maybe you have a favorite song that you listen to beforehand. Maybe you have a favorite, I don't know, cup of coffee, something like that. I mean, things like that do actually trigger state changes in us. Maybe you need to meditate, whatever, an hour beforehand, whatever you need to do. I believe it's important to show up intentionally. Another thing is confidence is key. This is obvious, but incredibly important. I think it's much easier to be confident walking into a listing appointment when you actually know your shit. Excuse my French. But if you are deeply uncomfortable about your listing appointment flow, and or you are not comfortable with the data, right? You don't actually know your market. You don't actually know anything about this house. You don't actually know what your process is going to be or how you're going to list it and sell it. Then that creates uncertainty. And I believe that humans are, they can pick up on that. Okay. So before I ever went on my first listing appointment, I practiced my listing appointment flow many times until I knew it cold. And was it great? No, but I was pretty confident that I at least knew what should happen. You should know commission reduction request overcomes, like how you're going to get over that hurdle. You should know those cold. You should have a plan like, hey, if this person tries to beat me up on commission, here are the things I'm going to go through, which I will go through with all of you. And then you absolutely need to know your facts and figures cold. Okay. So that's average price per square foot. You need to absolutely know the other comps that you're going to be utilizing to build their price off of. So just like, please do your research beforehand. It's so worthwhile to spend the time doing it. Even if you walk into a competitive scenario and you don't win the listing, you will have gotten good practice on the listing flow, and you have learned a ton about that micro market. Okay. And that expands to knowledge of the larger market. So just prep in multiple ways, right? Now we're going to get on to the actual listing flow, like what I actually do when I get to a home. Remember, I'm trying to get there 5 minutes early. I'm showing up for success, dressed for success. I have digital documents prepared. I have paper documents prepared. I also personally have my CMA email already open on my laptop so that the second I sit down with these people, all I have to do is open my laptop and they don't have to watch me fumble around looking for the email I sent to them. I'm going to be using that email as my guide throughout the whole thing. So for those of you who are newer in listings, the CMA email process is incredible because you can't really forget what you're doing. You literally just look at the email with them and you'll go through it. But anyways, I'm going to start fresh. Okay. So I walk up to the house 5 minutes early, dressed for success. I knock on the door. They say, "Hey, Nick, how you doing today?" I say, "Great. Thank you so much, Joe, for inviting me over to your home." We do general greetings and pleasantries. I say, "Hey, I really appreciate you making time for me today. I'm excited for the opportunity to earn your business." Okay. So I'm establishing that I'm grateful to have this opportunity for them. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set expectations. I say, "All right, Joe, now that I'm here, I'm going to take my shoes off. The first thing we're going to do is go on a home tour." All right. Once we're done with the home tour, I'm going to ask you to just lead us to wherever your favorite spot to sit is in the house, We're going to sit down. I'm going to go through this CMA email that I sent you yesterday. I'm going to give you all the facts and figures. We're going to answer any questions you have. Then we're going to sign documents and put together a timeline. Does that sound good to you? All right. So I'm getting their spoken agreement, like, hey, this is how things are going to go. I'm establishing expertise. I'm taking charge of this appointment. I'm not being meek and shy and letting them lead it. Like, they're going to want to hire somebody who's confident in the process, right? I've done this many times before, and so I'm acting that way. All right. So general greeting, pleasantries, setting expectations. Then they bring me on the home tour. All right. I told you I store all of my information about listings. Every house gets a new Google Drive folder. And in that Google Drive folder, I'll have a Google Doc, which says 1234 Main Street listing notes. I have my phone open during the home tour and I'm taking notes while we go. I say, "Hey, Joe, I just want you to know I'm taking notes the whole time so I don't have to ask you the same question 3 or 4 times. I promise I'm not texting my friends." They're going to take me on a tour. I'm taking notes the whole way. They're usually pretty terrible at giving a home tour, right? That's another reason they're hiring you. So I'll say, "Oh, Joe, this office looks awesome. Did it look like this originally, or did you add the crown molding and did you change the paint color? Is this original flooring? Oh, cool. Here's the powder room. Wonderful. I like the nice open floor plan." And I will need to guide them through the house almost always. A lot of times they'll skip the base. They'll want to skip the basement. I'll say, "Hey, no, like, I got to check it out. We got to look at the mechanicals. Do you have any idea the age of the mechanicals, furnace, AC? Have there been any water issues in the basement?" When I'm in the kitchen and the laundry rooms, I'm asking them, "Hey, do you think you're going to be including the refrigerator, dishwasher, stove, microwave, washer, and dryer? Are you planning or wanting to take any of these things?" Right? So I'm gathering information throughout this entire appointment. I'm establishing rapport with them. I'm talking about if there's a dog, I say, "Oh, hey, I love dogs." I do love dogs. Please don't lie to people. But, use this time to actually intentionally gather information and create rapport with this person. It's their home. They've invited you into it, and that's a big deal. So, keep it light and guide them because you're almost certainly going to need to do that. Listing appointment flow continued. Okay, so we've done the pleasantries, we've done the home tour. I now say, "Thanks for the tour, Joe. Where's your favorite spot to sit?" 99% of the time, they're going to take me to their kitchen table, which is sometimes super cluttered. We're going to make space. I made a note here about where to sit and how to sit. This is just like, I can't even remember where I got this from, but it's super good. Maybe Alex Hormozy. I owned CrossFit gyms before I did CrossFit, and we actually had Alex Hormozy as like a mentor. He was so funny. But I think this was from him. I am very intentional about never sitting directly across from my seller. All right. I think that feels very like interviewee, kind of like they're being investigated, not very personal. So you can feel free to disregard this, but I find it very useful for me If we're on the corner of the table, I sit on one corner and I try to get them to sit on the other as best I can, right? I'm not trying to make this weird and awkward and sit, uncomfortably close to them. I just do my best to not sit across from them. It's also really difficult for me to share my computer screen if I'm staring at it and they're staring at the back of it. So I really do try to sit on an angle from them. A lot of times there are two people. I am trying to get both, any decision makers involved at the same appointment. So I didn't tell you that yet, but that's an important part of my messaging. If it's a married couple, I'd say, hey, Joe, is Jane going to be at the house too for the listing appointment? It'd be best to speak to you both at the same time. All right. So we're sitting at the table. I whip my laptop out. I say, Joe, thanks for the tour. Thanks for leading us to the table. Let's go through this email I sent you. I'm going to pull out my CMA email. I'm going to click on the CMA. I'm going to open it and I say, hey, look, now that I've seen the house based on these 3 comps, I think it's worth $350. What did you have in mind? Does that work for you? And they're going to say something along the lines of, oh yeah, I was thinking like $675, but based on the information you showed me, I agree, maybe $650. Okay. Sales price is your first big hurdle you need to get through. And so I am very intentional about sounding very confident about my list price. Okay. If I waver or introduce a ton of flexibility into my suggestion, I find that sellers glom onto that. And a lot of times they'll try and influence the price. All right. But it's very difficult for them to argue or change the price when you have a legitimate CMA directly in front of them that is easily digested. Okay. So sales price, we go through that. If somebody wants to list significantly high or higher than I think, within reason, right? Like within 5, depending on the sales price, right? 10% could be huge on a big listing, but say 5-10% over. If it's within reason, then I'll say, hey, Joe, look, I get it. I'm at 500. You're at 525. I understand you want to be there. And ultimately this is your home. I'm willing to list it at 525, but I just want to, agree in advance that if there's no good activity within the first 2 weeks of being on market, that we're going to talk about a price reduction of 500 then. I think this is incredibly important. You need to set expectations up front. I am totally okay personally taking a listing a little higher than I want, as long as they agree to be reasonable and talk to me about it in 2 weeks. Okay. And if they keep pressing on it, whatever, I just say like, hey, look, this CMA is based off the best information I have. I think 500 is the number, but I would love to be wrong. I would be so jacked if we get your price of 525. It has happened in the past, and I will be very happy for you. I just want you to know this is what I think is going to happen. And if it doesn't, we need to talk in 2 weeks. Okay. And most people are very reasonable about that. That pretty much gets me over every hurdle related to sales price. Next thing in my CMA email is timeline to sell. This is literally just an average. Okay. So I'm going to say, hey, look, your comp sold in an average. Went pending in an average of 7 days. The range was 4 to 11. I have no idea what's going to happen. All I can do is promise you I'm going to do my absolute best to market the shit out of this thing and put it in front of as many eyeballs as possible to get you the best price and terms. And that's reasonable. They always say, okay, sounds good to me. Next thing is cost. All right. I explicitly tell them, hey, this is what it costs to list with me. It's 6% plus a $5.95 compliance fee. All right. You need to be very intentional here about not saying everybody charges 6% or the industry standard is 6%. We actually cannot do that. We can't have a standard rate for listing as real estate agents and brokers. So please be careful with your words there. Next section, wildly important. You need to build this out on your own. You got a brief preview of what I do for mine, but you need to have a why me section. Okay. So I say why me versus FSBO or other agents. That's the title of this part of my email, right? Or if I create it in like a slides presentation, if that's how you think. You need to include your process. Okay, so I pay personally for pro photo and pro video and aerial if it makes sense on the property for every listing. That's inclusive of my cost. My process is so on and so forth. lay out your process. I also run social media ads, which you should be doing if you don't. Right? Here's what, all that has led to a very repeatable process. I have 175-star reviews or whatever, however many 5-star reviews you have. An important side note for all of you, if you are not collecting reviews intentionally, you need to change that immediately. That is social proof, social currency. Seriously, call all of your friends and family and past clients, give them a $5 Starbucks gift card, get as many reviews as possible, because everybody's going to Google you before you show up to their house. Very likely, unless they're a very close family or friend. And even them, they're probably still going to Google, right? So go through your Why Me section, net seller proceeds sheet. I'm going to go through with them quickly. Just like I'm intentional about intentional is my word of the day here. Sorry, I'm so repetitive on that, but I guess this whole process is very thought out for me. I think it's really important to tell them this is a ballpark net seller proceeds sheet. I literally put in stars, this is ballpark net seller proceeds. I say it, hey, I can't give you the exact figure. Title is going to work this out based on the exact close date, but we're in this ballpark, generally speaking, right? People like to have some sort of an idea. When we're done with all this, this is what's covered. B through F is what's covered in my email. I'll say, hey, Joe, you got any questions before we sign documents? And they're going to be like, no, that was more than I anticipated. Or maybe they will have questions. And then all you do is you just you answer to the best of your ability. And then you continue asking questions, genuine questions, so that you can pull out every hurdle that they have. I say, hey, Joe, do you have any questions before you sign a listing appointment? He said, yeah, what's your process? And I said, oh, cool, we already covered it, but here it is again. Okay, sounds good. And what's the cost again? Well, here it is. It's 6% plus a $5.95 compliance fee. Do you have any other questions? No. Just literally knock down every hurdle. This one should be pretty obvious for you to go through on your own. Then I'm going to sign docs. Remember, I pre-prepared them, so I'm ready to fly. I always like to do them digitally if I can. An important note for all of you, as a broker, my suggestion to you, just never, ever, you should never be filling out their disclosures for them, ever. You are not the person clicking the check marks or typing anything for them on the seller disclosure or lead-based paint, unless you want to adopt the liability associated with that. Do not do that. So have them sign all documents. Now you're done. You've secured the bag. You secured the listing. Congratulations. So exciting. Next up, you can plan your timeline and take care of showing time related questions. Okay. My timeline is always, for me, I have photo video done on Fridays. I'm coming soon on Monday. I go active on Friday so I can catch people before they head out of town for the weekend. I have an open house Saturday and Sunday for every listing the first week. That's it. I never deviate ever, because it works very well for me. All right. And I think you should probably do that too. I'm a big fan of coming soon, even though the market, we're market zooming the last 2 or 3 weeks, which is awesome. But even though it's not like last year, I still want multiple days of coming soon, so that people can prepare, plan ahead of time, schedule their showings, look at the disclosures. I think it's good.
Can you say that timeline one more time? You said coming
Yes.
soon Monday, and then is it live Thursday or Friday?
Friday. Yeah, I always do photo and video the Friday before. I'd go coming soon Monday, active on Friday, open house Saturday and Sunday.
Do you think there would be any warrants to doing Thursday to
Sure.
get people in before they leave, like you said?
For a 3-day weekend? Yeah, it's possible. It's totally up to you. The active day is the one thing I've kind of tweaked over time. When the market was really crazy, I would put things active Saturday, starting at the 12 p.m. open house on Saturdays, because then all showings and the open house would start at the same time. We'd have an enormous horde of people out of the front of the house, and it created wildly competitive scenarios. So if you wanted to experiment starting on a Thursday, because a lot of people take 3-day weekends, I would maybe consider that in summer, right? When that's happening very frequently. But right now, this time of year, I would personally probably stick with Friday. It's up to you. They're both fine. So that's my timeline. Showing time setup. You're just really asking them, hey, is this going shower appointments? Make sure you get whatever information you need to build out the listing. Okay, that's it. I drop all the decision makers in the same group text. This is absolutely a process that you should not skip in your life. Everybody who's important to this, who owns the house, needs to be in the same group. I have had divorcing couples in the same group text. I say, hey, look, if you're okay with this, it just keeps all of us up to date. So you two don't have to be playing phone tag, updating on what I just want to tell everybody at the same time. All right. It gets rid of a lot of miscellaneous extra phone calls. So that's my listing appointment flow. It's pretty basic. I know that there's likely to be questions, and Anna, I'm sorry I ate up 8 minutes of your time here, but I'm going to go through these commission reduction requests really quick. Okay. I don't get this very much because I send this email beforehand and because I've spent so much time on my why me section, but this happens a lot and I wanted to talk to you about it. Commission reduction request. If somebody says, hey, look, like, I like what you got going on. It's cool, but like, what is the lowest you can do this commission wise? Can you do it at 5%? My answer every time is literally no. And that's it. I just literally wait for like 10 plus. I guess wait. It's so uncomfortable for them that they usually say, okay. So if you've been in any of my other meetings lately, I never really thought to tell people about how frequently I use silence intentionally, but it is incredibly powerful. And most people cannot live in silence. So I just say no. And they usually say, okay. If they don't, then I have two things you can do, okay? The first thing that I like doing, this feels true and genuine to me, is I talk to them about value versus cost. I say, hey, look, I get it. I would probably ask for a commission reduction too. Why not ask? There's no harm. But like what I want to ask you in return is, do you actually want to hire somebody to negotiate for you who can't even protect their own pay? Or do you want to hire somebody whose only value proposition is that they're cheaper than me? Because somebody can always do it cheaper, but it doesn't mean it's better. You know what I mean? I believe, and I am wildly confident that my process leads to a better sales price and better terms than most any agent or broker you're going to talk to. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that. You know, are you hiring versus the cost or the value? Like, I think I'm going to bring you a way better value than somebody who's just only value proposition is to go lower on price. So that's my second thing. I've heard tons of people use this 3 pieces of the pie. It feels a little confrontational to me, but I have used it and it works like a charm. They say, hey, look, this probably looks like a lot. 6% of 500K is 30 grand. You probably think that's nuts. But what I want you to know is the brokerage I work at is only taking 3%, and we're giving 3% to the cooperating broker, person who brings the buyer. Okay. And of that 3% that my brokerage gets, not me, that's going to be broken up into 3 parts. My broker is absolutely going to take their cut. Everybody's got to pay taxes, so another cut's going to the IRS, and then I'm left with what's remaining. There's 3 pieces: my broker, the IRS, and my family. Which portion would you like to take from? And then you just do that. You just wait in silence again, and it's so uncomfortable, right? Like nobody's going to try and take. I mean, some people will absolutely try and take from your family, and hey, good for them that they can do that with no shame in the game. But that'll get rid of a lot of problems. The next thing you can do, these ones have worked for me a zillion times. I'll say, hey, look, I can give you a discount if the house is sold within the first 30 days, but obviously I'm going to have increased and ongoing marketing cost if it's listed for more than 30 days, right? So, if it's within the first 30 days, then you name your price, whatever, maybe it's 5.5% or 5%, then I'll do it at 5 or 5.5%. But, if it's sold 31 days or later, then, it's got to be 6%. That'll get a lot of people. My absolute favorite, though, is this last one. I will give people a discount if I represent both sides. Now, obviously in the state of Michigan, we're allowed to represent both sides. We can be dual agents. I absolutely love doing it because I can see the whole transaction. I know what's happening with the lender and the buyer. I know what's happening with the seller. We have one title company. It is so smooth and I love it. So really my usual flow is no. If I need to talk to them about value and cost, I do regularly. And then I usually jump to this last one. I'll do 5% if I rep both sides. And that's it. Cool. That's my whole process, start to finish. Works great for me, at least. I hope it's helpful to you. We brought Anna on. Anna is from Brick Financial. They're our lending partner. They're so awesome. If you don't have a lending partner, I really strongly suggest connecting with Anna or Natalie, who owns Brick, whoever, and just giving them a chance. They're like wonderful for our team. I find that a problem a lot of sellers and a lot of agents bump into is juggling how to buy or sell and in what order, especially if they need to access cash. And so Anna's here to kind of talk about lending options and, how to sort that out. And I don't know, whatever else Anna's got for us. Anna, ready to go? We can't hear you. I think you're on mute still.
Sorry, great introduction here as I'm trying to unmute myself. My name's Anna Jaworski. I'm Nick's mortgage broker. I'm happy to see some familiar faces. I see my friend Catherine made it today also. So I'm with Brick Financial Group. I wanted to talk to you guys about when you have a seller who is looking to purchase a new home and some of the options that they have for that from a financing perspective. So I think first and foremost, kind of our hot ticket here is always the bridge loan. Do any of you guys know what this is, or do you have any experience with it? Okay, so basically bridge loan, you can use this to bridge the gap between the sale of one home and the purchase of another. In a general sense, we take this and we can take the equity out of their current home for a down payment on their new home so that they don't have to go contingent on the sale of the new property. Now, we can be really versatile with this program in regards to their debt to income ratio. So let's say they can use this bridge loan for the down payment on the new house, but maybe debt to income ratio wise, that part of the mix isn't working out for them. We can take this bridge loan and we can pay off their current mortgage on their current primary. We can pay off home equity lines with that. We can even pay off outstanding debts. So a lot of times this is super helpful in, again, just being able to purchase a new home, not contingent on the sale of their current primary. Now, with these programs, we can take up to 85% of their current home's value with this bridge loan. It is an interest-only payment. So a lot of times, let's say we are paying off their mortgage with that bridge. Maybe they're on a 15-year loan term right now. We can pay that off. The new payment, even with that down payment and the payoff of the previous mortgage at that interest-only term is much less than what they would have been qualifying with previously. So the rates on these are tied to prime interest-only payments for up to 12 months, and those end in a balloon. So typically, when the buyers on that house sell their current primary, they would take that and apply it towards the bridge to pay it off. Another thing that I want to talk to you guys about is recasting. Does anyone know about recasting? Okay, so ish. Okay, so with recasting, this is a great option if maybe your buyer has a minimum down payment, but their goal was to put $100,000 down out of the equity of their current primary. They can't make it happen yet. In the vein of making, again, a non-contingent offer here, they can put the minimum down payment down on the new home. And then after they've sold their current primary, they can take the equity from that in a lump sum and apply it towards their new mortgage. So it is lender dependent. I would say typically it's usually a $15,000 minimum for the recast. Depending on the lender, they can do this multiple times throughout the life of their loan, but they'll take that lump sum and they will re-amortize their mortgage over whatever that remaining term is without them having to refinance. So it's a nice way for them to lower their payment and maybe only incur that higher payment that they were trying to avoid for a couple of months. Yeah. And then, oh, sorry, I thought you were talking, Rob.
I was gonna say something. So the recast would cost like at least $15,000 extra? That's what you're saying?
Typically, yeah, I would say typically they have to put a minimum of 15,000 down. However, depending on their lender, it could be less. I want to say Caliber is one of like the loosest with their recasting, and I want to say with them it could be like 5,000 minimum.
Okay. So that's helpful to know. That what I was thinking you were saying was like basically the closing cost of processing like the recast. So that's not what you're saying. What would the closing costs look like for that?
The fees on those are typically somewhere between $250 and $500 for a recast. Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's literally nothing. Yeah, if you're putting down a lump sum of money like that, that is like a non-issue.
Cool.
Yes.
Good
So
to
the
know.
big thing here, Rob, is they're re-amortizing the loan too. So it's going to change your monthly payment dramatically. So I've used recasts countless times, and it is so freaking awesome, dude. Just put minimum down payment, then they sell their house and put a huge lump sum, and it's safe. I mean, that is a huge thing to save.
It just takes the mental thing out of it, I think, for the buyer.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's
really,
a phone call.
Yeah, super simple. And again, then they're only tied down to that higher payment, maybe for a couple of months. Maybe they haven't even made their first mortgage payment yet by the time they sell. So I think that's something that can be really helpful for a buyer who's hesitant to put in a non-contingent offer, depending on their asset standpoint.
That's really good to know. And one more question. It seems like the recast is good in the scenario where they want to use a huge down payment for their next mortgage. But if they don't want to, then maybe the bridge loan where they use the equity is better, just to kind of get them into it.
Yes. Okay. Bridge loan is, again, it's very versatile. Debt to income ratio can definitely play into it, but also maybe they just don't have, they've got a ton of equity in their house and they just don't have the funds for a down payment on something else until they sell. We can use a bridge loan in that case to take out the equity, apply it towards the new home. And the nice thing about the bridge is run through the same lender that the purchase of their new home would be run through. So typically the bridge loan is closing about 10 days prior to the closing on their new home. Those funds are wired directly to the title company that they're using, and they're just sitting there waiting for closing day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So last thing that I wanted to touch on is minimum down payments for your purchases. So depending on the area that your client is looking in, if they don't have a lot of funds, a lot of times we're looking for a USDA loan. If they're not a veteran, obviously VA, 0% down, but that applies specifically to veterans. For USDA, that's a 0% down program, as long as they meet the income requirements and they live in a rural area. So we have an entire map on USDA's website where we can literally pop in an address, see if that home is in a USDA eligible area, and the buyer would not be required to bring in a down payment. And I would say appraisal wise, USDA typically runs like FHA. But that's kind of our go-to when someone is short on funds and doesn't have any other means of getting a down payment. And then, as far as FHA goes, I'm sure you guys all know 3.5% minimum down payment. And for conventional, if anyone who is on the mortgage has not held title to a property within the last 3 years, they can do a 3% down payment. The pricing is not always super advantageous, but if it's someone who, does not have the funds to put the full 5% down, it can be really helpful. And just based on like a $250,000 purchase, difference between that 3% down payment and a 5% down payment is $5,000 in assets. So it takes buyers a lot of time to save up money, and that could be kind of a make or break for someone. So, and you could even have actually, let's say you're at a listing appointment and you've got a husband and wife that are selling a home. If the husband is the only person on the mortgage and the only person on title, his wife hasn't been on title to a home in 3 years, she can be on the new loan, and now she's a first-time home buyer and they're qualifying for that 3% down payment. So just kind of some workarounds there when someone is asset challenged.
Cool. I love it. Sounds good. And then another thing that that everybody can do, which I've had to do a couple times, is if they're uncomfortable with a bridge loan, and they don't like the idea of a recast, a thing I've had to do multiple times is I'll talk to people about like family, if they can get, maybe I shouldn't say this with you, Anna, but I'll say it anyways. If they're
What they do after closing, I don't
correct.
know.
Yeah. So get a gift of funds, right? There have been countless deals where I'm like, hey, look, these people have 150K of equity locked up in their current home. They're doing a move up purchase from 250 or 300K to 500 or 550. That's like a thing that happens all the time in my sphere. Okay. And, they'll be like my eggs. They're like, we have a bunch of equity, but we haven't had enough time to build a bunch of liquid assets. I say, hey, cool. I understand this is going to be a very personal question, but do you think your parents do? And they can give you a gift of funds for this purchase. And then the second we sell your house, write your parents a check to pay them off. And so I just think it's wildly important. I'm so grateful that you came today, Anna, because the more tools we can have in our belt, the more deals we can get done, right? I firmly believe that every deal is doable if I know enough, right? I guess
And that's the truth. If you have a workaround, and there usually is one,
almost always
you can get it done. You can get it done. And I think, again, a gift is a great option. It very buyer specific, but if you can, if they can get a gift of money from a relative for their down payment, then again, what they do after closing, who knows, but at least they can, get their down payment, they've got their closing costs, and they can get in the house. Exactly.
It works good.
Do you guys have any questions about bridge, recasting, zero down programs?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Any guests have questions? No?
Nick, I have a question for you.
Okay, let's go for it. What do you
When
got?
you do your initial appointment, do you go over like how to get your house show ready, or do you save it for another time?
Oh, no, I totally do. That's a great point. I should add that to my presentation for next time we do this. But when I walk up to the house, I already have that Google Doc prepped. It'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street listing notes. And while they're taking me on a home tour, I'm taking notes and making suggestions at the same time. So in my notes, I already have pre-written, like bold, underline, and italics to-do list. And that's at the top of my notes. So when I'm in the office, I'm like, hey, this wall looks like shit. So I'll make a little note, like touch up paint in office. And then when we go to the bathroom, I'm like, declutter. So I'm always taking notes. And a lot of times that's a huge thing that sellers ask me is how do we prep? And I'll say, don't worry, while we were walking through the house, I already wrote a list. I'm going to email it to you, as an article of like, a record of our appointment so that you don't have to memorize it. Right. Another thing that I do, like, a lot of times, I guess this is really important for everybody. If early in my career, when I'd have a listing, but it wasn't coming for like 3 months, I would say, hey, look, like we'll fill out docs then when we get closer, which is, I do not do that. I suggest you don't make that mistake. I stopped doing that years ago. Now I say, hey, great, we're going to sign the listing agreement and we're going to make, we're going to sign it with today's date. The effective start date for marketing is whatever day you think. But what I will do on listings that aren't going right away is I will say, hey, look, we're going to fill out listing documents today. It's going to be effective as today. The marketing dates are going to be 6 months. But what I want to do is I really want to come out 1 to 2 weeks beforehand. I'm going to set another appointment to see where you're at with the house now. And we're going to make last minute tweaks. My photo and video is always Friday, the Friday before it goes active. And I do my checkup appointments the Friday before, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That gives them a full week for me to walk through their house and say like, hey, you got to get all this crap off your countertops. I love the family photos that are the entire wall, but you got to remove some, stuff like that. So I hope that helps. Any other questions for anybody else on anything? Funding, my process, anything?
I got one question. Marketing, would that like start the day of coming soon?
Yes, very important. So on Monday, when our listings go coming soon, I have photos done on Friday so that we almost always, 9 times out, we always have the photos back by then. Almost always have the videos, unless they forget to get uploaded like this week, which happens. But every Monday, all of our coming soon posts go out. You can go look at the Bastianelli team Instagram for anybody who doesn't, or the Facebook. I have a template that Alexis preps all of us, all the stuff for us. So again, Alexis, I think I've been really clear. I'm very grateful for what you do in our business, but Alexis crushes that. And yeah, we post everything on Monday, and then all those posts are run as ads. So we boost everything for coming soon. It's really intentional because we write about the open house Saturday and Sunday, and I want to get as many eyeballs on the open house days and times as possible. So that always goes Monday. The photo post always goes Monday. Sometimes I have to do the video post on Tuesday, but yes. Simple answer, Rob. Yes, they all start when it's coming soon. Any other questions from anybody else who's here? No? Cool. Well, we're right on time. 90 seconds early. I hope it was helpful to everybody. If you need anything or have questions about real estate in general, feel free to call, text, email me, whatever you need. Thanks for the time. Hope you all have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
See y'all later.